Second state witness has been given testimony now in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Khaya Ngcatshe is a neighbour of the Khumalo family in Vosloorus, where Meyiwa was shot in 2014. eNCA reporter Manqoba Mchunu joins us now with more on this story. He was in court earlier. Before we speak about Khaya Ngcatshe, the second witness to take the stand today, Manqoba, let's begin at the end of Zandile Khumalo's testimony, because she's finished off today. What were the highlights for you this morning before she stepped down from the witness box?
Well, you recall, Pradan, that, we've been hearing cross-examination from Advocate Zandile Msholo, who represents accused number 5 in this particular matter. And some of the contentions that the defense had put to Zandile Khumalo was the fact that they believe that there were no intruders that actually came into the house on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. In fact, I think Advocate Msholo also, at some point, accusing Zandile Khumalo of fabricating a story as far as, what happened at the Khumalo house on that particular day. And today she was still cross-examining Zandile Khumalo on some of the inconsistencies between evidence in court, as well as the statements that she had deposed of between 2014 and 2018. But Zandile Khumalo obviously sticking to her guns as far as what happened in the house is concerned, insisting that there were intruders that came into the house, and that it is in fact these very intruders that had shot and killed Senzo Meyiwa. But at the end of the testimony, Pradan, we heard, of course, the judge also seeking clarity as far as some of the issues were concerned. And one of the questions that was raised by the judge was along, some of the questions that were asked by the defense lawyers in this particular matter, seeking clarity as to, some of those contentions that were made by Advocate Mshololo, as well as Advocate Zithulele Khumalo, who represents accused number 4. And one of the issues was that very claim that there were no intruders that came into the house. Secondly, he also questioned them about the claims that the lawyers say there were 7 people in the house, and that out of those 7 people, somebody in the house could have been possibly one of the people that killed Senzo Meyiwa, saying that, he was baffled by some of these questions that were posed by the lawyers. And I think Zandile Khumalo also responding, saying that she's equally baffled. And in fact, she dared the defense team to say, if they believe otherwise, they then should prove it to the court that, in fact, there was no intruders that came into the house.
Okay, then she was done, and then we saw Khaya Ngcatshe, a neighbour whose house faces the home of the Khumalos, where Meyiwa lost his life. Take us through what he said.
Well, his evidence was also quite interesting, Pradan. In fact, I think prior to him taking the stand, we've heard Advocate Zandile Mshololo alluding to some of the, statements or some of the claims that he had made in his statement, as far as seeing what happened at the Khumalo homestead on that day. And indeed, he confirmed what he saw on the night that Senzo Meyiwa was killed and what he heard outside the house. He was at his home when, in fact, he had a commotion from the Khumalo house, and he was asked to describe that commotion. He says it was, an unusual noise that he heard, and in fact it was followed by the banging of the door, which showed that there was force that was being applied. This door was being shut, and moments after that, he says, when he tried to get out to investigate what was happening with his father at the time, who we know has since passed away. He says that's when they saw somebody jumping over the fence, and didn't give a description of who this person was, but when they tried to get an answer from this person as to why they were there, this person said they had nothing to do with the attack that was happening. They had in fact been attacked, and that there was a problem at the Khumalo house. And he says that this person then jumped back to the Khumalo house, and he had tried to follow this person, but only to find, his father stopping him and saying that he had heard what sounded like a gunshot at the time. He then described going back to the house, and moments later going out to hearing people screaming outside and a commotion from the neighbors that were outside. And he says they then gave chase. They were told, in fact, by some of the people that there were people that ran away in the direction of the park, and that they then tried to pursue these people, but when they got to the park, they didn't find anybody. He then returned back to the house to see Senzo Meyiwa. In fact, I think let's take a listen, Pradan, as he explains what he saw when he got back to the house.
Masifika endlini saya ke azange sisangena endlini saya straight sesingena egedini lakhabo Khumalo.
When we got back home, we actually went straight into the Khumalo's house, through the gate of the Khumalo's house.
Sathi masingena ke sangena masifika emnyango kula sibona khona the late uSenzo alele khona pha epassage phakathi ekitchen.
When we got to the house and we got to the door, that is when we noticed the late Senzo lying down in the passage close to the kitchen. I say kitchen noma eduze nase kitchen.
Mangathi yangena kancane sengathi uzofikela epassage lasendlini.
As you get inside of the house, as though now you are proceeding through the passage of the house.
Khaya Ngcatshe there on the stand, beginning his testimony earlier today, ending that update by Manqoba Mchunu. The trial will resume tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in the High Court in Pretoria, when he will continue to be cross-examined. Of course, Khaya Ngcatshe is a neighbour in Vosloorus of the Khumalo household.